What if you were trapped in a driverless car? The first ever micro-horror shot in an autonomous vehicle.
The road, I mean, it won't...
What's wrong with it?
We're going the wrong way!
Would you know what to do?
Yeah, everything came together insanely fast. It was like the timing and everything was so fortuitous because they had just licensed ZombieCon Volume 1 on the platform. We had a call with the founder, Sean Overbeek, who actually wrote the script for Autonomous. And so we were quickly talking about their upcoming micro horrors, which he was excited. We're going to be shot vertically, kind of capitalizing upon the vertical boom that's going on, but making it really horror centric and original to the platform. And he was telling us about the script he wrote, and we were saying, that's awesome. He's like, are you interested in producing a vertical? We said yes. And before you know it, I mean, we had the script later that day, and I think in a day or two we were already in pre-production.
Yeah, it happened very quickly. It was a fantastic opportunity, something exciting obviously with the new vertical format. And having our base kind of in doing experimental stuff, circa 2015 with like our kind of competitor to YouTube, Muna.tv, it felt nice to kind of be on the cutting edge of technology, both from the script perspective and dealing with AI and autonomous vehicles, as well as kind of the media side of things, where it's like, well, verticals have been around for a little bit, but this was trying to really elevate the kind of platform, if you will, like make it more a cinematic vertical as opposed to just a, up and down, quick and dirty vertical that we see so often out there. Yeah, I think it felt more than a short film, just because the story was robust and the elements obviously involved in it. And we were, moving past one conversation into, the monster, the car. So it did feel like doing a short movie for the most part, I would say.
Yeah, it's hard because we've heard it compared to both called a short and also a series. And I think that both are correct. It's on, like how I was saying, kind of this experimental new wave of watching content and digesting it. And it is broken up into episodes. So I think that both are accurate. Whichever one you prefer to call it that makes you happier, then that is the one that it is.
Yeah, and I would say from a filming perspective, it definitely felt more like, if I had to go in one direction or another, it felt more like a movie. Now, it didn't feel as overwhelming as a movie, but from the storyboards and the amount of coverage we were able to get, it definitely was more movie related than short film. Like if we were doing just a short film, we would have slashed the coverage probably in half and shot it in half the time. So it definitely felt like a more evolved version of that, which again is very strange because it definitely didn't feel like doing a ZombieCon again. It was really in this nebulous middle ground between those two things.
It was so fun. It was so fresh. It was an amazing experience. Yeah.
Well, the way the script was delivered to us by Sean, he had actually written it in an episodic format, but delivered it all in one. So you're reading it and, it's basically like a full-on script, but unlike a TV show where you'd have a different script per episode, right? It just kept reading, but you did have breaks for the episodes. So in the edit, I was just kind of following what the script said. And I guess for our side of things, there were really well written transitions from episode to episode. So you saw what those cliffhangers were. And for my coverage, it was just making sure, okay, we need to get a shot that we can use to help this transition flow. So we're capturing this moment as a pivotal moment that kind of leaves us there and, hopefully keeps people wanting more. So a little bit of work on our end, but mainly it was kind of delivered to us in a perfect format, in a perfect fashion. And it was really well written in regards to keeping the tension going and building upon itself. So it made my job a lot easier. Yeah, well, I think I'm still dealing with back troubles from the entire experience, just from like the crazy positions we had to put ourselves in. And we were shooting on the Arri Alexa, which is not like a light camera. They think the entire camera package weighed like 25 pounds. So, trying to shove your body into these different places, and we weren't shooting in like an Escalade either, right? The Jaguar F-Type, which is the car that's used for Waymos, at least in Atlanta, it's a seemingly larger car while simultaneously being smaller than most sports cars. Like, it is a strange confluence of things where I took measurements of this vehicle to make sure we could fit it into the garage we had and, put our equipment around it and everything. I'm like, that's a pretty big car. This is going to be great. It's going to be easy. I get inside the car and I'm like, I would have trouble sitting in this car comfortably, just driving like down the road, let alone.
I too, and I felt smushed in the back seat. And I'm trying to hate on Jaguar, but all of us on set after spending an inordinate amount of time, to be fair, in this car in weird positions, we're all saying, this is the most kind of non-luxury feeling luxury car. It's very, very tight. Yeah,
we found ourselves wishing, why couldn't this have been a Range Rover? That would have been so awesome. Oh yeah, stretch limo. That would have been perfect for me. But it was a fun challenge because it forced me to kind of, work creatively within such limitations, which I feel like whenever you have such strict limitations, it either destroys you or it pulls something new out of you. And this, I think it pulled some new things out of me, and it allowed me to get a little bit creative where to put the camera to keep this conversation going and to try to make the edit flow smoothly, with cuts being organized in basically a power dynamic with the relationship to who was kind of winning the argument or whose side the audience would kind of be more on in that moment during the course of the conversation. So it was all in all a very fun experience, and Screamify has been fantastic in terms of like a big part of their platform is being a huge supporter of indie filmmakers. And when they approached us with this project, we've usually stayed under our own umbrella, so we haven't really ventured too far out into client work. So we're a little bit like, I don't know how this is going to work, but it was a great opportunity. We wanted to take advantage of it. And sure enough, they handed us the script, they handed us the budget, they said, have fun. And so I was like a little bit shocked. And I know this isn't, for my friends in the business, not usually how it works. And I, of course, wanted to do justice to the script. So I made probably more phone calls to them than they made to me concerning how progress was going and just checking to make sure, okay, do you like this monster design? Do you like this thing? Like, we trust you, do your thing. And it was just complete support and like all positivity from their end, which made our jobs like super easy, as what I can imagine it would have been had they been much more hands-on, which, too many cooks in any kitchen usually results in, Alien 3 debacle, and no one wants that.
Our experience was that they absolutely stayed true to their premise. It's an independent horror streaming platform that champions independent filmmaking. And that's exactly what they did. They were, not micromanaging us. Oh, I see what I did there. Micro horror. And they really let us play. And we were, as Kyle said, checking in a bunch. And it was, a team in that regard. And it felt that way all the way through. It was a lot of support.
Right, the script had a kind of loosely defined version of what this figure could be. Like in many horror movies and scripts, like, yes, you got a general idea, but it kind of fell on us to take that vision and run with it. So we got to do the whole creature design, which I'm like a huge fan of because that's like the most fun for me. And it started with really finding the hands, which we knew I really wanted, like those tapping on the window shots, and I knew how important those were going to be. And that was an entire saga in and of itself. Unfortunately, our makeup artist who did such amazing work on ZombieCon, Joe Debresco, was not available. He was busy during the time that we were going to be shooting. So we had to kind of search out other people. So we started with going to makeup artists, asking them, how much would it cost to create like these Nosferatu-esque hands, but like in a new original way? And, the budgets were getting wildly out of control from everyone I spoke to. And also, it was going to be like a 4-hour application process. And I'm thinking, well, how does that work? We only have this road scene for one night, and that's going to completely blow our timeline apart. And then I'm thinking, okay, we got a lot of grabbing going on. So, all of a sudden you lose a finger. Okay, now you're into the makeup chair for another 3 hours. So we ended up opting for silicone gloves from a company. And unfortunately, these companies that do these really high-end silicone gloves, they usually do it per order, and they don't really have a lot of stock sitting around. So what was available for a 4-week delivery window in the time that we needed them was basically like orc gloves. And I was like, I could cut them apart a little bit. I could, add some makeup, add some veins, do some stuff, but it's just really not going to work. People are going to look at this and be like,
Lord of the Rings.
this could be Lord of the Rings. Yes.
And we're huge Lord of the Rings fans, but we didn't want orc. That's our bad guy here.
And so I called one of the companies and I was like, guys, like, I'm just trying to figure out how much I can mess with these things with my own makeup process to change them, and how well things would affix to the gloves and everything else. And through the course of this conversation, the lady stops me and she's like, hold on. And she sends me a picture via text, and she's like, how do these look? I'm like, these look great. And she's like, these aren't for sale yet. We're going to put them on sale soon, but we have them in stock right now, and you'd be the first person in the entire, world to have these things. And they're not currently available. And I was like, you just magic to my ears. So we got this awesome pair of hands, monster hands. And we were the only place in the entire country that had them during the time of shooting. So it was like a double bonus to also have that cool piece of knowledge and know that it's not something people could easily source online and be like, oh, those are from this thing or those are from that thing. It's a completely original design. And then that extended to the mask, of course, and we wanted to match the mask. But in the script, we have these large gaping holes that kind of peer into a void of nothingness. So we ended up opting for a cheaper mask, actually, from Amazon. We just needed something that was going to be essentially a cover to the face with no facial features. And we then had our neighbor in Atlanta, who's a very talented artist. She came over, she looks at this mask, and I planned on layering in little veins and doing this whole makeup job to it. And she's like, I can do that for you. Like, I'd happily do that just to be able to do something to say it was in a movie. And I'm like, yeah, that'd be awesome. So she took it. 3 days later, she comes back. She's added subdermal vein. She's added enough, layers of makeup to give it that kind of translucency that skin has, which is basically just applying things to a peach shell in layers, right, from darker to lighter, and giving it some depth and character. It looked fantastic. And then we got to do the eyes in VFX again, which thankfully was not like ZombieCon, where we had thousands of zombie eyes. It was just, this one very specific shot that I was working on. But yeah, it was a ton of fun. And then of course the costume itself was described in the script more or less. And we just tried to find fabrics that worked within the realm of what was described. And me and the guys on the crew went down to the basement and found a whole myriad of random tools and just distressed the heck out of these things, just beating it with, rusted metal and scratching it and creating all these divots and covering it in dirt. And
They were like kids in a candy shop.
I think that was
very
one
cute
of the most fun things.
Yes.
Yeah. And then the actor himself, Thomas Molnix, who's actually a friend of mine from college, is a massive man. And I thought this would be like it's always important to have your monsters be like super big and intimidating. And so I have two friends actually who happen to be over 6'8". And I sent a text to both of them and I said, hey, meet a guy who's 6'8 plus to play a monster. Any takers? And Thomas immediately texts back. He's like, I took an acting class in college. I'd love to do it. I'm like, you're in. So he gets on set. It's his first thing he's ever acted in. And he was an absolute champion. Getting dressed up, even though it was cold out, he was probably the only guy on set sweating at the time, right? But he's got the mask on. He can barely breathe in that thing. The huge gloves that come all the way up to your elbow, where you just pool sweat in those things after a while. And obviously all these layers of costuming, these big boots. And it was just a fantastic experience. In terms of motions, those were described in the script, more or less. Ratchet, like kind of rigid movements that were unpredictable. But we kind of walked through it and I was kind of showing him what my interpretation of that was. And then he kind of just brought the character to life on his own. And what I specifically loved about his performance is when he does raise that finger up to the glass and taps it. I just like that was all him because I knew he was going to tap the glass and I wanted it to be creepy. But I just thought the timing on that was so perfect. And then it was basically matching everything to that movement after we got that kind of perfect take. And I was like, okay, this is our momentum for this creature. And yeah, it just all kind of came together in the mix.
Yeah, I love when I was reading the script too, and it's like, yes, thank God. After how many, movies where you're watching the scenes, it's like, girl, you are not gonna keep running those heels. You're fighting for your life. You're gonna take those, 10 seconds to get those things off, especially if you're in the woods. I mean, you'd be sinking into the forest floor. No way. I think it's kind of a term of endearment. I think it's taken on kind of a life of its own and just cemented itself as a part of pop culture. Maybe it started as something different, but what it is now is largely, from everything I've heard, just a term of endearment. I haven't seen the interview, so I would have to watch and give my full thoughts. But I like being the final girl. I've found that flattering and fitting. Amy was. I mean, she made it. She's the final girl.
Well, it's better than being like the first one off screen. I don't know. I always think from an acting perspective, if I'm reading a script, especially if the story's good, I'm like, if I'm coming at it as an actor, I don't mind being on screen for as long as humanly possible.
Yeah. To be fair, now that I really think about it as well, my opinion on this, I mean, ZombieCon, spoiler alert, Claire survives. But I've been in a lot of horror films and shorts and series, and I always die. So I did not mind being the final girl. She's she's a fighter. She definitely does not, lay down and just give up. Whether it's in an argument or struggling and fighting, she's got some fight left in her. Never say never.
Or maybe the monster possesses you and then uses your
I become part of the haunting, if you will. Trying to Amy's gonna need some cool hands in the next one. They've grown. She's got the long speared fingertips. I could see it. Overwhelmingly positive. Yeah, and different in a way, because ZombieCon was as well, but it's different. I mean, obviously the format and the concept are so different that people are really gravitating towards that as largely their viewers. The ZombieCon, the concept, fun, unconventional, if you will, with conventions and cosplay versus zombies, wild and outlandish. And here it's, wow, this is so timely, this is so tight, this is so... I love tech and horror. It's a familiar thing, and yet this is cutting edge. So a lot more talks about, being cutting edge and on the verge of something new. But we've been really pleased, especially with the technical, the concepts and the technical feedback that people have been giving, that it was just very cinematic and very well done.
Yeah, and that was the goal, right? To try to take this new aspect ratio and try to give it enough of that cinematic language in the cinematography that it translated to something that was more than just created for social media, but with intention.
And the vertical format is not, I will say, yet, it seems, for everyone. Some of the negative feedback where there has been people, I can't really wrap my head around it yet. It's something, it's so odd, kind of, I wanted the full experience of seeing it on the TV, or I tried to watch it on TV first and I was confused, and then I went to the phone. And I think that's, honestly, I don't take that even as a negative, because when you're on the verge of this new and adapting, just like with the driverless cars, it's going to take a moment for people to get their heads around it. So that's been honestly more interesting than anything.
Yeah, it's kind of like being at the beginning of YouTube again, circa 2015, 2012, when people, at least in Hollywood, they didn't really understand it. People were doing skits and stuff on YouTube, but everyone in Hollywood was like, oh, you're doing a YouTube project, roll my eyes, blah, blah, blah. And I always saw it as this is the new frontier. This is kind of what Hollywood is always, and movie making in general, is always championed, right? All the way back to France. It's just been always about creatively trying new things and solving new problems with new technology, whether it's special effects and VFX or puppetry or stop motion effects. The history of Hollywood and movies in general across the globe has always been about exploring new technologies and merging it with art. So I felt like this kind of came together on a lot of those forefronts and gave us a really awesome opportunity to not only explore it in terms of a filmmaking perspective, but how often do you get to tell a story about an actual piece of technology that's just emerging in our world. It's not like some secret military, top, aircraft that we hear about 50 years after it was made and no one knew it was, existed in a hangar. This is a piece of technology that you can order off your phone and drive in today in some cities in the US at least. It's like, oh, this is great. So that was just super exciting. Yeah.
100%.
Kind of like making a movie with like the first iPhone or something.
Yeah.
I think that this fills a niche that you can't, it's not like you put it up against a horror movie and say, oh, this is more, because it's on my phone, I'm more into it, or because it's on a TV, I'm more into it. They each fill a totally different niche. Like if I'm watching a horror movie at home, I have to block out my 2 hours. I got to turn down my lights a little bit different. I like to feel the creature kind of on the back of my neck and have my sound system up, and I'm totally immersed in that experience. But there's a trade-off to that. I've got to block out 2 hours. And now, if we had talked about this 3 years ago, I'd have been like, well, that's no problem. I got 2 hours all the time. As a new parent, it's like, I don't have 2 hours all the time. I've got a million things to do. I've got work to do. I could barely get 15 minutes here, 15 minutes there. And this fills that niche where it's like, well, I love horror. I love, finding new stories and new ways to experience horror. But I don't have 2 hours right now. I'm on the train to work. In the back of a Waymo driving home. Hopefully you don't watch this in a Waymo. Or if you do, it might actually enhance the experience. But it gives people an opportunity to experience the art form in smaller, more capsulated, in a more capsulated perspective, and in a way that's intended to be held naturally with the phone, which is obviously, everyone's got a phone, everyone's always on their phone. And this is just kind of a trading off of, do I want to be doom scrolling on TikTok or Instagram for the next 15 minutes and seeing a bunch of nothing and not really getting anything out of it? Or do I want to, watch something with some intention and get some narrative value? And basically, it's a little bit heartier of a meal.
And it's funny that you described being a new parent, that is like changed, because from my situation and my experience with being a new parent, this is perfect for my current movie watching needs, because I've got small little chunks of time usually when I'm settling her down for a nap and I'm holding her and getting her in the crib. She's woken up in the night, she's teething. Like, I have small little chunks where she's actually asleep, but I want to keep holding her to make sure she's like deep asleep. And I am always watching on my phone and those wireless headphones. This is perfect timing to be able, and vertically, I don't have to turn the thing. And it's all, hard for my wrist starts getting sore. I'm the perfect customer. Now, granted, when you're settling your daughter down in the middle of the night, horror is usually not like the best thing, I suppose, or maybe from my perspective, it just has been. But yeah, like how I was saying, it depends on not just how you enjoy, but the time that you have and the circumstances. And this fills the niche perfectly, because everyone has that couple minutes here and there where I could be scrolling, or I could actually be doing perfectly divided little bite-sized episodes that just, maybe one more. Okay, I have a couple more minutes. I could get 2 more episodes in. And before you know it, hopefully, you binge the whole thing.
Yeah, I don't think it's never going to replace movies, right? Movies are always going to have it's the original art form in this regard. But I think it is a beautiful next step in the world of possibility for where we can use this technology to tell different types of stories in different ways. And looking past even these verticals, I'm very excited for when a company could finally release a VR headset that doesn't weigh, 7 or 10 pounds. And we can start telling stories in VR, because the auditory possibilities with 360 sound for horror specifically if you're looking at something that could trump a movie experience for horror specifically, I think VR is where you find that reality. Because when all of a sudden I could put a creature auditorily directly behind you and you have to turn your head around to see it, I mean, that could be very exciting.
We have a couple different scripts and are circling a couple different projects. It literally depends on which one the financing and timing comes together first and makes the most sense. But they are varied. I mean, we've got horror, we've got kind of like a darker comedy. There's a kids show that we're definitely doing. That'll be fun because Kyle, this is all his idea to begin with, was we need content that our daughter can watch. She's going to be coming to that age soon where we're more comfortable with giving her a little bit more screen time. And, you know, we haven't found a whole bunch out there that we're excited to show her at this age and stage. And so he was like, well, may as well just make it ourselves. And then we can also put it out there. And so he's been putting that together, spearheading that. And how would you describe it again? It's like, obviously it's being narrated and led by a couple different hosts that are Pixar-y.
Yeah, it's like you're thinking about like a kid version of David Attenborough, but mixed with Crocodile Dundee and a little bit of Steve Irwin. So a little bit of fun Australian adventurer and his sidekick Koala, who, you know, give informative but child-friendly explanations of different types of animals and kind of walk you through, you know, everything from a blue whale to a snail.
It has just taken on a life of its own in terms of us being grateful for the review community, the horror community, anime fans, cosplayers, but especially the horror and indie film review community has just really propelled ZombieCon Volume 1 out into the world, I think bigger and better than we were even hoping for. You know, of course, everyone wants to be that one film that goes absolutely viral. Maybe it's in theaters like Obsession or this and that, but we were insanely excited, pumped, grateful for how much reception it got on its tiny indie film marketing budget. And of course, on our end, grateful that we've gotten to meet a whole lot of people in its release and talking with everyone, but blown away. Absolutely.
And it's now been released in the UK, and it's just got picked up. I don't know if it's out officially yet, but it's going to be released in Japan, which is super exciting, especially for, like, you know, the anime crossover that, you know, we're huge Japan fans, and like anime played such a central spoke in the story of ZombieCon and what the characters love. It's kind of cool to see it come full circle and make its way over there. So I'm excited to see what they think of it and to hear everyone's thoughts, although I'll be using a lot of Google Translate to figure that out, I think. But yeah, it's extremely exciting. I know we will be at DragonCon later this year. We'll do a panel there. They asked us to come to do like a behind the scenes kind of panel about the movie, how it was made and stuff like that. So that's pretty awesome.
DragonCon here in Atlanta by September. Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it just kind of figuring out what are the next steps for it. There were talks about turning it into a comic book, turning it into an anime, trying to find a different way to kind of continue the story. And then, of course, work on ZombieCon 2 continues. It's been a little bit sidetracked because of the other projects that Erin was talking about previously. We're finishing post on a movie that we did before shooting Autonomous. That was also sidetracked because of Autonomous. But as soon as we get done with post on that, and we get that out there, we're going to try to turn our turrets back to ZombieCon unless something else comes up in the interim. And the hope is always that we're willing to take any of the other jobs before we get back into ZombieCon 2, simply because the script for ZombieCon 2 is so big.
We're gonna need a bigger budget.
Yeah, I would love to tell it in that way and not, you know, water it down. But if we have to water it down and be more realistic and lose like 1,000 of the extras, we'll find a way to tell it creatively that stays true to the script. But I would love to get the actual budget to do it correctly. You know, and really kind of blow the socks off the world with that one, because it is...
Go for it.
Yeah. It's like a full-on zombie war film.
No!
Don't.
Oh, f*** you.
Oh, hell no. I would have been a driver. Screamify micro horrors. soon. Download if you dare.